those are low level words when describing actually how it feels. And then I came back down, and it was the weirdest thing. I'd stopped shaking, my temperature had gone, but I did have a temperature for the next 2 weeks for an hour that went up to 105, 106. And I think, I don't know, whatever was happening, I was supposed to pay attention, but I didn't really pay attention. And I carried on until later life, where I was going through sort of moving back from overseas, 2 small children, divorce kind of happening, it's pretty much bankruptcy, the whole lot. And I remember thinking, having the fears, which is when I rediscovered my sort of mindfulness practice. I just remember thinking, I have got to trust in something bigger than what I can do. And actually, that's the thing. We all feel we've got to get it right. We've got to do this, and we've got to do that. And the pressure we put ourselves under. And for me, my awakening moment was the whole thing about actually that I had no control.
Hi, it's Calvin Niles, the mindful storyteller, and I am delighted to share with you stories of awakening. Each week, I'm going to be talking to people from around the world of various backgrounds and experiences. People I love, I know, and people I admire, but also those who are completely new to me. One thing all my guests will have in common is that they have been through a journey of awakening. By awakening, I mean a call to higher consciousness and deeper self-awareness beyond material reality. These stories will be real, challenging, funny, stimulating, and insightful. We're going to take our good time with these conversations. So listen from your comfy chair with your favorite drink, or on your weekend stroll, your morning routine, or whatever makes you happy. Stories of awakening with me, Calvin Niles, and I look forward to you tuning in. Welcome, Tosh Brittan. Thank you so much for joining me for Stories of Awakening. I've known you for a number of years now because we actually studied mindfulness together, didn't we?
We did indeed. And thank you so much for having me. I'm so delighted to be invited onto your podcast as well. It's like really exciting for me that we're talking about all this stuff. So yeah, and we did just in the community as well, which has been life-changing, certainly for me.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the main reasons why I wanted to explore with you your own journey, your own story. As we talked about just a little bit, off camera, we were talking about SOAR Book Club and all these different stories of awakening and the fiction and how that was resonating with them in their lives. And I'd love to hear some real life stories. And then that's what sort of was the genesis of these conversations. So where did it all begin for you, Tosh? When did your story of awakening happen? What was that pivotal point? And did it happen in one big bang, or did you have a series of ripples, or how did it all begin? I got my coffee.
Are you? So, I think mine was a ripple. I think in life, what happens is if you don't listen, it keeps coming back and biting you on the backside until you start really paying attention. I know for me as a child, I used to be able to make things happen. I used to be able to see things that could happen. I used to sleepwalk a lot, and I used to see people who passed over. I used to see things. I used to talk all the time so I was kind of like in that place, and I was always told I had a very imaginative mind and all that stuff. And I remember thinking it was all very real. And I also had this thing where I used to get very goosebumpy very, very quickly, including my face. And people would say to me, "Oh, what's the matter with your face?" And I go, "Oh, I don't really know what's going on. My face just does this sometimes." So I had no idea what that was until much later. And actually, it's when it's almost, people say sometimes, "Oh, I've got somebody walking over my grave," or something like that. And for me, it's a sort of a direct message from people who look after me, who my guides, if you like, angels, whoever you feel is there for you, or maybe a member of your family. who are kind of there and just letting you know that what you're saying and what you're thinking and what you're doing is right. It's like affirmatory. So that has become like an amazing tool for me. I think my parents were part of they were part of the Totnes, Dartington Hall back in the sort of late 60s. And, my dad was off seeing Ravi Shankar while my mum was in hospital. And so we always had a lot of art around, and we had friends doing yoga, my parents' friends doing yoga, and there was always joss sticks. And there was always kind of that sort of element of creativity as well, and sort of open to something different. And expansion, I think, sort of. So I grew up in a very kind of interesting household. My parents still, artists as well. And then I guess kind of life takes over, and we kind of, things happen to us, and I died when I was 31, and I just remember it was the weirdest thing. I kind of had this mental mad temperature that started as a result. The doctors thought of maybe a possible kidney infection, and I was at home, and my ex didn't tell me at the time, but I had a temperature of 105 heading to 106, and I could feel this wall of heat coming up my body, and I had rigors, and I was shaking, and we were waiting for somebody to come and take bloods from me to see if I was okay. And I just remember being this sort of shaking mess and feeling this heat starting at the bottom of my feet, sort of moving up my body very slowly. And I remember thinking to myself, as it kind of got to my waist, oh, if that gets to my brain, my ears, I might actually be in quite a lot of trouble. And I was shaking uncontrollably, and I just was so cold, and every bit of air was like it was like being burnt with ice almost. It was the weirdest sensation. And then I just sort of went into this place of acceptance and ended up in a tunnel of light, and feeling very just so at peace. And I've spoken to people consequently as a result, and they've said that they've asked me, what is it like? What does it feel like? And there are no human words that can describe just how extraordinarily perfect, beautiful. I mean, those are low-level words when describing actually how it feels. And then I came back down, and it was the weirdest thing. I'd stopped shaking, my temperature had gone, but I did have a temperature for the next 2 weeks for an hour that went up to 105, 106. And I think, I don't know, whatever was happening, I was supposed to pay attention, but I didn't really pay attention. And I carried on until later life, where I was going through sort of moving back from overseas, 2 small children, divorce kind of happening, sort of pretty much bankruptcy, the whole lot. And I remember thinking, having the fears, which is when I rediscovered my sort of mindfulness practice. I just remember thinking, I have got to trust in something bigger than what I can do. And actually, that's the thing. We all feel we've got to get it right, and we've got to do this, and got to do that, and the pressure we put ourselves under. And for me, my awakening moment was the whole thing about actually that I had no control.
Hi, if you're enjoying this conversation, you might like SOAR Book Club. Many similar conversations are happening in SOAR Book Club, a book club for the spiritually curious. If you like spiritual books and community, then why not join SOAR, where we can grow together, learn together in a fun and nurturing environment. Click the link below in the description to find out more about SOAR Book Club, or to find out how you can join. It'd be nice to see you there. That is a big
Were you ready for that? Were you expecting that?
Yeah, thank you. Can I just ask about that?
Yeah, of course.
So when you were a small child, you were having these kind of experiences where your guides, your family, ancestral lineage were guiding you and giving you feedback, and you were very much aware of this.
Yeah.
When did that stop happening? When did are you able to place when you felt like you almost fell out of touch with that? And then And then when you hit 31, you had this episode and this near death experience, or you actually
Mm.
died, and you had this transcendent experience. Did you then regain it then? Or what happened in that intervening time?
So firstly, as a child, um, um, I kind of knew all of this, but I just, the whole conditioning around, scary stories, scary films, and we're all encouraged and conditioned to be suspicious and to be worried and nervous. So I would walk into houses, and because of what I'd been told through, TV or films or whatever, that to feel like that there must be a haunted house. And so whereas before I used to walk in and be completely okay with it, I was sort of, I had that whole thing about, oh my goodness me, it's scary, it's got, it's this and that. And then after I was 31, I remember being invited to join this circle by a friend, and sort of a medium circle. And I remember we were all doing these, they were going to rescue, which means that spirit passed through you and you send them off into the light. And I remember sitting there and they're going, oh, don't worry, it's your first time, you'll be okay, don't worry, And so I kind of opened myself, everybody opened themselves up and to receive, and in a very protected space as well. And I just remember everybody's kind of doing their thing, and I'm literally going and I felt like I had like this second massive heartbeat, and my body actually changed, my physical, I felt like I was suddenly this enormous person, and I was waving, going, hello, I think I've got something inside me. And I remember thinking, anyway, and I did, and it was a gangster from the 1920s who was looking for money and didn't, and he was sort of having trouble going because he was so angry, and yeah, and then I had other experiences. So I suddenly started thinking, oh, you can really do this. This is, this is not going to go away, and it's important. So I started doing a lot of meditation. I started connecting to guides, and really listening. So every time I felt like I knew the answer, but I was feeling pressured and it didn't work, or there's that whole thing that we get into our little boats on a big river and we kind of start rowing upstream because we're so worried about what we don't know that is at the bottom of the stream. We just imagine it to be very, very like scary, and I guess that's, my awakening moment was in a series of experiences which actually brought me to the place of complete trust, and that, we think, well, us humans, we've got all the answers, and we don't have all the answers, and that's, yeah. And so now I work a lot and I do a lot of channeling with clients as well, and I help people that way. So I've really brought it into my work and really embraced it, rather than kind of being in the closet for a really long time going, oh no, can't talk about this. It's like too weird. So anyway, yeah.
And did that happen before the fever episode, when you basically died, when you had this first channeling experience in the circle? Did that happen before the near death experience or after? I mean, would you even call it a near death experience, or was it actually?
No, I did. I would say I was on the other side. And I was there for about, I think, 2 minutes as well, 2-3 minutes. Yeah, I think, but the thing is, when that happened, I still just, it wasn't until about 4 or 5 years ago, somebody said, oh, I died. And I went, oh, I did that as well. So I kind of forgotten, because in my world, none of this is unusual. None of this is too scary for me. None of this is, none of that is difficult. But I do remember, I just want to share one of the moments, my reminders, I think, was we were in Indonesia, and there was a big coup going down. There was a lot of people running around the streets with in Jakarta with guns and all sorts, and And I remember coming out of this department store with my husband at the time, and we walked around this corner, and I remember and I said, no, I don't want to go up this lane, let's go back in. And then we went in, and 5 minutes later, these girls, Canadian girls, children of the embassy, came running up to us going, do you speak English? Do you speak English? These guys have just run down this lane shooting everybody with machine guns. And I remember thinking, oh God, I was actually quite, we were looked after that day. But what was it, that sort of, and I think the opportunity is for all of us is that we have access to so much to help and support us, but we've just been conditioned to not be open to it, or to think of it as scary or automatically bad, when actually it is incredible, the help that is out there for us. It's like another layer. I mean, it's like, access to amazing stuff. And, when I work with people, I say to people, I said, oh, just go and send, if you feel like there's somebody with you and there's a robin, or maybe you see a white feather or something, and you feel like somebody is with you, give them jobs to do. Get them to help you. If you've got a problem, ask for help.
Yeah.
I'm probably jumping on several steps from this.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, it's so vivid as well. I'm imagining you running down the street in this coup, and all of this is happening. So after you've come over the fever episode, what happened after that? So you're 31, and roughly around that time, you had come into the medium circle for the first time. Was that before you died or after you died?
After.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had this death experience, you went to the other side, you came back, and then you went into this medium circle, you started to channel and bring all of these people, and the whole idea was that you were serving them, helping them essentially to transition. Is that right?
Yeah, because I think there's sort of, I don't want to get into the religious aspect of it, and people can believe what they want to believe. But for me, what I discovered, there's a kind of there's a layer of people who, for whatever reason, whether they were, their life was taken, whether, they were murdered, or maybe they died lonely, sad, that there is a sort of layer that exists full of souls who are wanting to go out and find the light. And just to give you a kind of an example, if it doesn't sound completely crazy, there was this guy from the 16th century who had literally been poisoned in this pub with these merchant, he was a merchant, but he was a merchant seaman or something, and the guy, because you can talk as well, and they talk to you about what they're going through, and he just said, oh, there's my family, as he passed over, and they sent him into the light. And you just think, bless that soul for having been here for like 400 years and just going, help, I'm blocked, how do I get out? And I think it's, we either think that's, if you believe what you believe, it's either gone, or you're gone, or you're never going, it's only one life. But I obviously believe in something more.
This is huge. I'm listening and I'm thinking, that's definitely a Big Bang moment. I know you said it's ripples, but after the fever episode and the death experience, it was like a huge boom moment of awakening there. And then your life changed, it sounds like, because you started to do this work on a different realm in a more conscious way than maybe you were ever doing up until that point. And did that continue, or how did that sort of unfold later? And I know you mentioned there were ripples. So what kind of other wake-up moments started to happen after that?
I think things, so for me it became more do you know what, I could literally tell you so many stories. I'm literally going, So one day, for example, there were moments like, okay, so I'm just going to share with you a couple of them. So I was running in these. So yeah, so one weekend I wanted to go running, and I had small children. They had their friends around, and I was like, I just need to go and run. I started going for a mental walks, and I was just like, I need to get out. Anyway, went running. And I was like, just don't play with any, just stay there. Which, I'll be back. Went for a run in the autumn in this park full of beech trees, and so all the leaves were falling. It was wet. It was, the dogs were there. And before I got out of the car, I thought, okay, I remember thinking, I'll leave my phone in the car. There was nobody else in this massive national park, as it was about 3:30 on a Sunday as well, in the autumn. It was kind of dark. And I put my phone in the car, and I put this key, put it in my pocket. And I remember hearing, just be careful with your key, just be careful with your key. And I was like, I was in my mind rather than listening to myself and my intuition. And I just went out running. And anyway, and I kind of like 40 minutes, I was about 30 minutes into the run, and I kind of put my hand, feel my pocket, and then my key had gone. So I'm like in the middle of nowhere. My children are like, I was just like, and I started laughing. I literally just stood there in the rain in the middle of this wood, this big forest, laughing, just going, well, of course, because you told me, and I wasn't listening. And somebody said to me, what did you do then? And I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to carry. So I just thought, I'm going to trust that if you had told me I was going to lose the key, that I was going to find the key. And I was not going to stress. So I was going to carry on running, and I was going to fully trust in whoever was there for me, looking after me, warning me about the key, would also help me find the key. So I carried on running, and there was this tiny little juncture in between the trees in the middle of this park. And just as I came running up, this young couple came walking across this crossroads of paths. And they said to me, you don't happen to have lost a car key? And I literally just, and they were the only other people in the park. And we crossed at this crossroads, this path at the same time. And I literally thought then, this is what it's all about. This is another aspect of life that we do not access enough, that we do not trust. We do not, we think we can own it all. Yeah. So that was one story briefly, and then, well, briefly, probably not. And then another one, I was looking to rent a house, and my son had just started at this primary school. He came back with a friend, quite a long way away, and I kept being told, look at this certain site for a house, because I couldn't find a house near the primary school. And so I had a look, and I kind of phoned and made an appointment, found this lovely looking house. I went outside and I went, oh my goodness me, I'm so happy we're going to see a house tomorrow in the village where you live, to this boy. And he said, great. And I said, oh, we're going to rent it. And he said, oh, what does it look like? And I said, oh, looks lovely. It's got a red garage. And he said, that's our house. And I just remember thinking, well, of course it is. And I met his dad, who was the landlord, when he came to pick up his son about an hour later. And, things happen in our lives, but when we sort of practice that awareness and checking in, how does it make us feel? What are we being told, rather than being on that, about this in mindfulness, that automatic pilot, just getting things done. And we sit and we have that space and we, listen. So, and now, when I don't, I consciously tune in now.
Yeah. Did you ever find this? So, I mean, you're going through all these experiences and you're aware of this reality that's much wider than, physical reality and the mundane. And I call it mundane because I'm talking here about, get up in the morning, eat your breakfast, pay your bills, go and whatever, earn money. Yeah. So you're aware of this wider universal or the intricacies of these different planes of existence, if I can maybe describe it that way. Were you always 100% aware of that? Or did you find that some things maybe deafened you a little bit to that? Maybe you got distracted by life, ordinary life, and then you had to have another kind of big bang or mini big bang to remind you.
Yes. Big mighty whammy one. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, you know, when you've got children and you're going through the whole thing, and we moved abroad and we had this very glamorous, high level, octane fueled lifestyle in the Middle East, and you know, everything. But it's interesting when I think back now, I did think for a while I was quite lost, but I always knew that where I was living wasn't good for me. It wasn't authentic, it wasn't real. And you know, I remember some mums saying to me, oh, come on, let's go shopping in the big malls, and I just wanted to go out and be in the sea or go riding in the desert, because I needed that sort of contact, that, you know, with nature, I think. And I also got to the stage where I think I did, to a greater degree, lose that whole connection, and I ended up getting very depressed. I remember being sort of suppressing it. I ended up putting on antidepressants, and I just totally I functioned, I think. And I was very angry, I was very emotional, and everything was just being blocked. So rather than, you know, and that's what kind of we tend to do, you know, our mind monkeys want to protect us. And but
were you kind of aware that I'm feeling this way because, or was that so far pushed into the back of your mind, you know, you really wanting to reflower your kind of awareness, that you were feeling depressed but you couldn't place it? Because so I'm hearing you're depressed, you're angry, there's a lot of negative emotions, or shall we say low frequency emotions rather. And did you have any consciousness at that time that, you know, I know this is why, but you didn't have the courage to maybe take the step back into your full blossoming? Or was it that you didn't know, and because you had fallen so far from the awareness that you had since you were a child, that you probably weren't even aware what was going on? Did you have any recognition at all?
It's interesting because I think I was just, you know, I was a single mum, pretty much living in a, you know, in a male dominated, quite a disempowered place. And
By this, I guess you mean the Middle East, when you were living in the
yeah. And you know, there's no judgment, it's just kind of how it was. And you know, and I feel like did I you know, I went and did my Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 there, but I think I was just functioning. I think something had just taken over and I had shut down. And but I had to understand, you know, so for my work now, working with clients, I had to understand all the frustrations. I had to understand what it felt like to be feeling in an emotional box and not being able to escape, to let any, you know, not knowing, you know, I see it as a part of my whole learning curve, to understand better the experiences people have, to then help them actually get out of it. And the weird thing was, I actually came off my antidepressants before I went through divorce and the whole move and the bankruptcy, you know, and I was just like, no, girl, you can do this. You have access to all the tools and you have the power within you. It's about us believing and not feeling disempowered. You know, we have the power. All of us do. You know, it's like everybody, you know, everybody has mindfulness within them. They go, oh, no, it's in you. You know, everybody has the ability to heal. It's in them. Everybody has the ability to, you know, access whatever they do. It's just thousands of years of feeling disempowered and being told we couldn't, or it was wrong, has just layered everything up over us. And I do think there was that moment, and I just thought, I felt, I think the word surrender, I just had to surrender to what life was giving me. I had to just go, okay, whatever is supposed to happen now is going to happen, and I'm going to go with it, and I'm going to work with it, and I'm going to be open and kind to myself while I go through this whole thing that I was then going to go through. And yeah, and see what happens the other side. But for me, everything is a learning curve. It's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Always. I mean, there's nothing that has happened in my life that I would ever think no,
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. And so when you were going through the divorce and the bankruptcy and all of those big life changes, you had already surrendered at that time.
Yeah, I knew actually. It's the interesting thing. That's a really good question. I knew I think I got to that stage, and I knew I had to start the process of surrendering. I had to surrender, and then it would be easier for me, because otherwise I would just be battling against everything else that and it's it's a bit like water. When we try and block it, it'll always find a little way out, and the more we block it, the more difficult it becomes. And I just thought, just let go, accept whatever is happening, let it go. Just see what happens, and trust. If you're a good person, you show up, you look after yourself, those you love, just see how it works out for you. And I had so many people saying to me, oh, what are you going to do? And it was their fears through their lens of their own experiences, and they were going, what are you doing, oh my goodness me, how are you going to cope? And I just remember thinking, at the end of the day, they're all lovely and they care, but I am the one that has to go to sleep with my mind monkeys. I call them the divorce mind monkeys now. I have my divorce mind monkeys. We have to be able to go to sleep with ourselves, and to find a way to make that right, is our journey.
That's really powerful, and resonating with me, because I mean, I went through a marriage. I start to change the language after a while. First, it became marriage breakdown, marriage failure, that kind of language. But it's the separation that happened because we grew into these different places, which I can reflect on now and see that. But at the time, it was absolutely the worst experience, I would say, that I ever had from the point of view of emotional disruption and pain and so on. So being able to let go through that process for me is that's just something that's striking a chord with me. So as you move through that then, and there's something you mentioned as off camera just before we started recording this that I found really
It's those little sneaky little remarks, and you kind of go, oh, what was that one?
It's like, how can I sneak this into our recording conversation? Here is the opportunity. No, but so you've come through all of this, the 31, the death, the awakening, the channeling, the medium circle. There's so much there. And still, you mentioned that you're still flowering, you're still waking up all the time. And there's something specific caught my ear. You talked about the time that we're in now, and something about now that's so unique, and the challenges that we're facing. And I just wondered, how is that helping you, or is that another part of the ripple? I don't know if you could talk a little bit around ripple of your awakenings, or what's happening now where we are in these times of 2021 and going into 2022.
Yeah, I mean, wherever we are now in the world, whatever is happening in various different countries, and whatever is happening, everybody is being really, really challenged at the moment to I think there's it's very divisive. I think there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of control. It's kind of interesting. I wrote a blog about, well, I actually need to publish it, about coercive control on a worldwide stage at the moment. And it's not just in relationships. It's like, I feel like everybody's kind of, there's this thing going on, and people are resisting, and it just, I feel at the moment we all, it's about all of us having to do the work ourselves and to show up for ourselves and actually take responsibility for everything, you know, what we say, what we do, how we think, and the energy behind that as well. And, you know, people are feeling fearful, you know, if you go and spend time with friends who particularly are kind of angry or they're fearful, and you sort of come away feeling, you know, slightly, you know, down, or maybe, you know, the energy is kind of, I don't know, you feel like you've been energy vamped, I call it. And I think when there's a lot of fear around, the energy it can be quite difficult for people. And I think people, you know, we tend to blame ourselves and go, oh, I can't do this, or, you know, what's the matter with me that I can't, you know, feel tired, or I don't feel so good at the moment, or I feel really low and I'm doing all the things I need to do, ticking all the boxes, but there's still something that is perhaps not, but I can't put my finger on it. And then I know what we mentioned is something called the Schumann resonance, which is sort of solar flares. So it's the Earth's energy, and it's the impact of like solar flares that hit this planet. And the last few months, you can kind of Google the Schumann resonance, SCHUMANN, I think it is. And see you know, the monitoring. It's kind of their computers that monitor it, and how this planet, our lovely planet, is being impacted so much by the Schumann resonance, and how if we're feeling a little bit wobbly and we don't know why, this is also another layer of how we can be affected. So, you know, we've all got to learn to swim and trust that we can, you know, get into our boats and trust that we're all going to be okay. But I think what is for me incredibly important is that we're kind to ourselves, so we look after ourselves, we're in our best place, so we're not hungry, angry, lonely, tired, ill, you know, as much as we can do, and then to extend that and help and support others to be just to help them, you know, and actually that we're all going through stuff, and to be kind and to be compassionate, and to maybe practice taking that breath if we're triggered, and just come back to owning ourselves more, rather than blaming and judging and comparing. It's like, actually, how can I, with what I know, and, you know, whatever degree that is, and that's all right, you know, it doesn't matter. You're not failing, you're not on the boat, because, you know, it's we all just get there in our own time, but we are going through collectively as a planet a massive recalibration even, and not something that is to be taken lightly. But yeah, so I don't know if I think that was kind of what you were alluding to.
Yeah. It's quite powerful what you're describing to me, because, you know, I've personally never heard of the Schumann resonance, but it does sort of intuitively make sense to me that there will be these energies, happenings, all kinds of things happening in the, you know, universal space that will of course impact Earth and impact us, because we're part of that whole system. And then of course we don't realize that how much of an opportunity there is. So it sounds to me that this is even a waking up opportunity as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think we just, you know, I just want to even, you know, sort of thinking when you were talking about how even just the moon, and I remember working in a call center briefly, temping there, and somebody turned around one day and they said, is there a full moon going on? And I kind of, my ears pricked up going, hey up, this is my language. And somebody went, yeah, it's today. And they went, oh, that's why everybody's phoning up and complaining. And somebody said, can we just get the moons on the calendar so we all know to expect big complaints? And, you know, if we think about it, the moon impacts the water, the seas, you know, surfers love a good moon because, you know, get some peachy waves in there. But if we're all, you know, if we are, the majority of us are, we have so much water in us, why are we not going to be impacted as well? So this is like an easy one. If you're feeling like you're not sleeping around a full moon or even a new moon, you're feeling a little bit angsty, this is how you can start learning to sort of connect to how you react to what is happening in nature and what's going on.
Wow.
Yeah, I always love that story. It always made me laugh.
It's a good story. Yeah, you've got so many rich experiences, and I'm sure we can we could probably talk about this for the entire day. I just really wanted to, yeah, to say thank you. I don't want to hold up your whole diary.
No, not at all. It's been lovely. It's
Yeah.
just really lovely for me to talk about this and to share it, because I think for so long I've sort of kept quiet about it, because there is that whole thing about, oh, it's a bit woo-woo, it's a little bit out there, it's a bit weird, it's a bit strange. And actually, I think the more we embrace it and the more we can talk about it, and not feel like there's something wrong with you for you know, I mean, I think it probably goes back. Somebody once said to me, we are the great granddaughters of the witches they didn't burn. So, you know, as we were perceived then, you know, as being dangerous, and actually we all have it within us. It's an exciting time. It's an awakening. There is you in various channels, you know, there is a lot of talk about a great awakening. So people are waking up to something more than just the mundane, as you were saying, and that's really where the magic in life is as well. It's about noticing that beautiful cloud, or noticing some flowers, or just smiling at somebody, and you know, that's what it's all about. And awareness,
Thank you so much, Tosh.
Pleasure. Lovely.
I'm really, really, really delighted to have you on, and yeah, thank you. There's nothing more for me to say than thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on as well.
What is most meaningful for you in 2022? Is it healing and forgiveness? Is it love and belonging? Or maybe it's the courage to be and to act. Soar Book Club has all of this for you and a lot more. We know that stories carry a message. And for 2022, Soar Book Club will be bringing more great stories with messages that we can get our teeth stuck into, to wrap our minds around, and to open our hearts in a fun and engaging community. If you want to read more and need accountability to keep you moving forward in your already busy life, are you looking for inspiration to develop your spiritual awareness? Maybe you want to be part of a positive community during these uncertain times, or connect with like-minded people who love stories and books. Then join Soar Book Club. Hop on board. The train is about to leave the station, and I would love to have you on the journey with me. So click the link below to join. That's Soar Book Club with me, Calvin Niles. I hope to see you there.